Hello everyone, welcome back to Maverick Mods. Well, this week somebody turned the heat off. Not gonna be too terribly cold for too terribly long, and it's not slowing me down. I don't like cold. Anyway, moving on. This week, finishing up the suspension modifications and making the coilover mounts for the front suspension. So let's dig in, take a look, grab some popcorn. Let's see what I'm doing. Before I go to Conan on designing and building my coilover mounts for the front suspension, I do need to think about a few things. With the spring sitting in here, I need to make sure that it sits far enough out from my frame rail that I'm not going to bind on anything. Okay, so I got to keep that in mind. Another thing is, when I ordered the shock spring, the coilover combo, I ordered 14 inches of travel at ride height. So I measured and I've got my spring. I actually could put the front springs on the shocks where they need to sit, and they're sitting at 14 inches. So I'm where I need to be there. So what I've done, I've got my spring, or excuse me, I've got my coilover, even though it's loose right now, at ride height. Now the nice thing about it is, since it's at ride height, and the spring is basically no load at this point, when the weight of the car is on the spring itself, I've got the entire shock body to adjust my spring, and I did a little back of the napkin calculations based on what I think the car is going to weigh and based on what I think the front rear weight bias is going to be. I think I'm going to wind up with somewhere between 1.5 inches and 2 inches of compression on the spring to bring the car up to ride height. So I'm good there. I've got plenty of travel on the shock body. I've also got plenty of space in the coils. I'm not going to coil bind. Life is good. So what I did, where'd I put it, is me and my templates, made myself a template. I came up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here. Now I've got my alignment hole set, and the method to my madness will make sense here shortly. So I did my template, made sure I got plenty of room all along the shock body, and I went ahead and cut some pieces. So here's my first piece. Now when I cut this one, I can cut both sides. I can cut driver side and passenger side, so I did, and they're set, ready to stick in. Let me get a nut on there, just for giggles. So my first piece is in. Now what I plan on doing, since I do have a little bit more weight to deal with on the spring mount itself this time, okay, in the rears 3/16 is fine. That's more than enough metal to withstand the weight on the rear. Front, I need a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is, I've got my first plate here. I'm going to back it up with a plate behind it that's going to go straight back and weld into my upper control arm mount. It's going to weld all the way around up here. I have a plate on the back side as well. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of 1/8 inch instead of 3/16. I'm going to double up my tab here to somewhere around right here, okay? And then I'm going to angle that out this way and tie into my upper control arm mount at this point, top to bottom, and come in here, so that I've got, basically, I'm going to do that front and rear. So I've got 4 plates that are transferring the load from the shock and spring, from the coilover, to the frame itself. At that point, when those are in, I'll box in the rest of the control arm mount once those 4 pieces are in and welded. And nice that everything was symmetrical side to side. It fit just like the other side did. So so far I'm doing pretty well as far as the left side and right side are matching. So next up, I'm going to make some templates for the second 3/16 plate. We'll get that in and show that as a progress when that's done. Status report. Second plate is made. Fit. I haven't got it bolted down on this side, but everything looks good. Let's go over to the other side because I'm ready to tack everything in on this side. This has been squared, checked everywhere, every which way. I'm going to tack these pieces in. Alright, driver side's tacked in. Let's get the passenger side all set up. We'll do the same thing. I'll take my measurements from the other side just to verify that both sides are equal and correct. Alright. Now, you measure the other side. So there's equal. Now, are we square? I think the bottom needs to come in just a little bit. There we go. That looks good. Let's check it again. Alright, that looks good. Gonna tack it. I'm gonna weld up the first set of brackets here, but I don't want to damage my shock here. So I keep a selection of little bushings here. This one is exactly the right, what was that, 1 inch, I guess? So I'm gonna take my shock out here, put my bushing in. I don't have to tighten it tight, but just enough. I want to be able to keep my spacing here because the welding, the heat will distort things a little bit. At least it'll keep the spacing here so I won't have a fit issue with my shock itself. And I'm just going to go ahead, take the coilover itself out and put it away somewhere safe so that I don't get a whole lot of welding sparks and spatter and whatnot on this nice shiny piece here. Update on the coilover mounts. I've got my, I guess it would be my third plate, cut, fit, bent, clamped in place, but I've got to center the hole. And I figured the best way to do that would just be clamp it in place and run my bit through. Give me a hole there, or give me a mark there. Now I can take my clamps loose and show you what I've got. So essentially what I did was I just mirrored my shape of my first coilover mount on my piece here, bent it so that when it comes in it'll fit flush and yet it'll distribute the loads back. I'll make another piece like this for the back side as well. On the tab here, I'm going to do probably 2 holes along here for plug welds, and then I'll groove all along the edge here, and I'll just weld the edges all along here. Once I get my hole drilled and get everything bolted in place and held in place, I can basically just weld this in. I beveled all along the edge here, and I made myself a couple of plug weld holes. I've got my hole, through hole is not quite the 1/2 inch. I want a little bit of extra material here. I'm going to run my drill bit through and finish reaming that out after I get it welded in place, just in case. That way I've got the holes exactly matched. But I've got it done on this side, got it done on the other side. Now it's time to weld it up. We're welded in, got the welds ground down, and got the other side complete. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so we're duplicated on the driver's side. I've still got to drill my hole here, but other than that, next up, I'll just repeat the process for the doubler plate on the back side. Status update. I've got the fore and aft doubler plates welded in, ground down, ready for the next phase, which is going to be boxing in the top, boxing in a little section on the bottom. The bottom boxing will tie into this doubler plate that already exists on the frame rail itself. Once those are done, then I can just finish boxing in the sides here. Anyway, that's where we're at. After getting everything, my doubler plates yesterday, I gave up, went home, had a drink, came back out this morning, time to start fresh. I made a couple of additional plates here, boxing plates. So one of them's going to go up here, that'll box that in. The other piece is going to do double duty. It's going to box in the bottom edge, but also it's going to tie my coilover mount into this doubler plate on the frame, or the frame rail. So I've got it, I actually ran out of weld-through primer, so I used some zinc chromate instead. I need to grind that zinc chromate off wherever I'm going to weld. So let me do that real quick and we'll get it ready to weld. Status update number, I don't know where we're at, 9.6 thousand. Anyway, after getting my coilover mounting tabs boxed in and reinforced here, I went ahead and finished up boxing in the upper control arm mount on the rear side. I've got the first plate done on the front side, and I've got my template cut to finish right here. So that fits on the passenger side. Always a good idea to check if you're doing side to side. Template fits perfectly on the driver's side as well. So let's cut the last pieces of metal. Okay, right there looks good. Let's go ahead and tack this in. Okie dokie, this side's done. Let me weld up the other side. And basically, front coilover mounts, front suspension fab work, other than some grinding, is done. Okay, status update number, where am I at? 11.67. I've got the upper control arm mounts boxed in and triangulated. More triangulated than boxed in, which is what I was shooting for. I got plenty of strength there, so don't worry about it, guys. And I put a coat of primer on everything. This is all coming off and going to be sandblasted once again before it gets final paint. But I'm using the primer basically just to show me if there's any spots that I missed that need attention before I start sandblasting, because it's a whole lot easier to do it now and fix it than it is to sandblast it, say, oh wait, I got to fix this, and then have to re-sandblast it and worry about flash rusting on everything else. So anyway, there's the passenger side. And here we are on the driver's side. So I'm pretty happy with it. I've got a few, like I said, I've got a few spots I still need to address some of the welds, but for the most part, she's good to go. And now we get to move on to whatever phase I'm on. I guess this would be phase 3 of the fabrication series, which is going to be getting the interior set up. You guys didn't seriously think I was going to end there without giving you the money shot. I can't do that. Gotta do it. Okay, here we go. Let's see what it looks like with the coilover in it. All right, let's go ahead and get this guy lined up. Bottom bolts are in loose. Oh, come on. There we go. There it is. And we have coilovers on the front of our 1971 Firebird resto mod. That's going to wrap things up for this week, guys. Modifications to the front suspension done. Coilovers mounted. Still got a few little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, at this point, we've got wheels and tires on the way. We can do a final test fit and see kind of what the thing's going to look like actually sitting on its skin. So certainly appreciate everybody watching. Big thanks to everybody. Please like, share, and subscribe. It certainly does help me out. Everybody, have a great day.